I have been playing the guitar for 43 years, and my interest in the guitar has consumed a considerable amount of my life. It's also provided me with a consistency that's outlived friends, acquaintances, and several other discarded interests and hobbies. My musical association with the guitar began when I was barely out of diapers. I received my first transistor radio at 4 years of age. It was a Christmas gift from my parents, and although I'm sure they didn't realize it at the time, they had just opened up the whole world to me. I was born in 1957, and so I grew up with the music of the 1960s. My earliest recollection of music on the radio would be the Beach Boys, but shortly after that another band exploded upon the world. One of the biggest cultural and musical phenomena of the 1960s, who shaped fashion, ideas, and most of all music. The Beatles were the sole reason why I began to play the guitar. When I went to see the film A Hard Day's Night, I was overwhelmed at the reactions of the audience, mostly the girls, and I left the theater knowing right then that I wanted to become a musician. I wanted to become a performer, not just a guitar player, someone who could sing, play, and write music just like my idols, the Beatles. I asked for a guitar every Christmas from my parents from the time I was 5 years of age until I was 10, but they didn't think I had the determination or the focus to pursue an instrument. My father went to visit my cousins one Christmas when I was 10, and my cousin Henry had an old beat-up acoustic guitar that he wasn't playing, which he sold for me for $5. My father paid for the guitar, and as part of my gift, my parents finally relented and sent me for guitar lessons. I quickly demonstrated proficiency with the instrument, and I stopped taking formal guitar lessons after 1 year of instruction. My guitar teachers were mostly wedding band guitar players, excellent players who focused on what was then wedding band standards, but I wanted to play rock. While I was learning the basics from my lessons, I was figuring out the songs that I loved on the radio by ear. Eventually, I abandoned my lessons never to return and began what was to become a lifelong love of learning the mysteries of the guitar and songwriting. In the 1970s, when I was in my late teens, I discovered a man by the name of Jorma Kaukonen, a guitar player for a popular West Coast rock band, the Jefferson Airplane, who was also playing in a side band known as Hot Tuna. My life was about to change dramatically. This music was finger-picked on the acoustic guitar, heavily blues and ragtime based, and it presented a major learning challenge for me. I absorbed myself in the music of Hot Tuna, developing a love for other acoustic blues guitar players such as Blind Blake, the Reverend Gary Davis, and many others. I played acoustic guitar almost solely from that point on until the 1980s. In the 1980s, I wanted to expand my knowledge of scales and the guitar fretboard and become more adept at playing the electric guitar. Eric Clapton became a focus of interest to me because his music was so blues-based, and he's such a creative and in-the-pocket type of guitar player. Clapton's strength as a guitar player is his ability to play in the moment, which was something I had been striving to do. Clapton provided a vehicle for me to expand my playing, and he provided an understanding of how the basic blues scales are at the root of most of the music that we listen to today. Jazz, rock, pop, rap, etc. are all children of the blues. When you understand how to play the blues, you can jump into most other types of popular music. One other significant guitar player who impacted my playing was Carlos Santana. Santana approached his music with a combination of blues and Latin jazz, which again provided an opportunity for me to learn and apply new scales, and he also forced me to think beyond scales. Carlos Santana is a very lyrical guitar player who has a gift for expression and timing, and I learned from Santana that the space between the notes are as important as the notes you actually play. His music also forced me to think beyond scales and chords, and use chords as a way of targeting what notes I play. I used to just play scales, which is where most guitar players begin. But now when I improvise, my thought process actually combines scales with chord tones, which has made my playing a lot more musical and a lot less mechanical. For example, if I improvise alone, a listener will now be able to hear the changes of the chords that are taking place behind the music, which is a considerable leap for me to make as a musician. Within the past few years, I've also discovered the music of an obscure gypsy musician from the 1930s named Django Reinhardt, who played with an acoustic group of musicians called the Hot Tub Club of France. While I'm not a devoted or serious jazz fan, I find Django's style of swing jazz intoxicating and very, very catchy. So I've listened and continue to try to learn from these old recordings. I think Django Reinhardt is probably the most gifted guitar player I've ever heard. All the more remarkable considering that he only had 2 fingers on his fretting hand that were usable due to a childhood accident. Django's playing was inventive, proficient, flashy, and uplifting, and he set the bar for generations of guitar players to follow. The Beatles, Jorma Kaukonen, Eric Clapton, Carlos Santana, and Django Reinhardt. These are the most significant figures in my musical education. Each of them have provided me with countless hours of struggle, elation, enjoyment, and interest, and they've shaped the musician I've become. I've been playing the guitar for 43 years, and my journey continues.